And we're live. Welcome, everyone, to a high vibe conversation. I'm your host, Shel Shapiro. With me today, we have Linda Vetrus Nichols, Jenny Langren, Dorit Carlson, and Stina Marie. Today, we will be talking about being someone else. Before we get started, I want to thank everybody for joining us. I want to remind you that this is a safe space, and we invite you to share with us as we talk through our life lessons and hold space for you to work through yours. So, what this means is that if at any time on the live or the replay, anywhere in between, if you are resonating with the conversation, if you feel like you have something that you want to share or add, whether that's your experiences, your tips, and more, please feel free to share with us and everyone else in the chat. We will be sure to come back to your comments and respond to them to keep that conversation going. If you feel like you prefer to join us more privately for an individualized conversation, here's a link where you can do that and book in a one-to-one call with the high vibe lady of your choice. The link is here on the screen. I will pop that up towards the end of the conversation as well. And if you are new here or coming back for more, we encourage you to catch up on the previous conversations and also subscribe so that you don't miss any of the upcoming ones. Here's the YouTube link where you can do that, and I will share this again at the end as well so that you don't have to go searching for it. That being said, I'm excited to dive into the conversation about being someone else because I know it brings up a lot of feelings of imposter syndrome, and I know we've each navigated that in our own way. I personally don't really want to be anybody else, and I don't think I've ever wanted to be anybody else, but I have in the past had thoughts occasionally of imposter syndrome where I compare myself to others and think that I'm not good enough or think I'm not as good as somebody else who may be doing something a little bit differently, maybe a little bit further along. And then, of course, I get to remind myself that I am uniquely me and nobody else can do what I do. So that kind of takes me out of that idea or momentary lapse in judgment a little bit of possibly wanting to or considering being somebody else or like somebody else. So I'm curious to hear what's coming up for everyone else. Linda, I'm going to pop over to you since you're already unmuted. Is coming up for you when we talk about being someone else?
What comes up for me is not being myself. I was so into perfectionism, and then I was putting together a compilation book, and I was just like, I had a special file for the final edits, and then I forgot I had a special file for the final edits. And all these people were depending on me, so I was like extra about it. I literally put out the wrong interior. It wasn't major edits where they're like, oh, don't put that in or something like that. But those last little minute ones. So that was the day I let go of perfectionism. So for me, it's a little bit opposite. It's the flip. Don't be yourself. At the soul level, we're not perfectionists. So I got back to who I really am at the level of the soul.
I love that. I love that letting go of the perfectionism and tapping back into who you are more innately instead of trying to do it all and be it all and put everything out there. And it's great how you recognized it for yourself instead of like pushing through until somebody else maybe like nagged you about it, but like you probably were beating your I know for myself, like if I'm in perfectionist mode, and so I can't speak to like the way that you operate if and when you're there, but like for me, I'm harder on myself than anybody else is going to be. So even in perfectionism, I am like, all right, what crap could somebody else possibly say about me, and how do I mitigate that so that I don't ever like have to hear it from somebody else? So I'm harder on myself, but like that's also part of being me. Like not the perfectionism part, but like the fact that I can maybe like think in different directions to think about different scenarios. So taking that in a little bit of a different direction, but like still authentically aligning with who I think and believe and know and trust that I am, right? So I'm coming over to Jenny. What's coming up for you as we talk about being someone else?
Well, imposter syndrome is so much about guessing. It's about spending time in other people's heads, or so we think we are, because we can never really know what people are thinking or needing or wanting, and making decisions based on guessing what they think of me or guessing what they want from me. And I remember going to job interviews and dressing the way that I thought other people wanted to perceive me or wanted me to look. And then I remember shifting that into actually beginning to pick out outfits that made me connect with me instead of the imposter syndrome. And shifting that into, what do I actually like? What did I think of it? Am I happy with my performance? How would I like to make it different next time? And just coming back to myself. And there's so much peace in your own head when you're not constantly entering the spheres of others and their decisions and their thoughts. Just coming back to yourself and being present with what is actually within your power, and that is your choices, that is your behavior. That's where our power resides. So I just remember making that shift and the peace that followed.
For I'm at a loss for words right now. That rarely ever happens, right? Yeah, like usually I can connect the dots on something. And I think the fact that I don't have anything to add to that, like I'm just gonna leave that there for now and let it simmer. And if something else comes back in later, then I'll add it when the time presents itself. But like I'm not gonna fight it. I'm gonna connect that back to being myself, right? Because like if I tried to connect the dots on it right now, we could sit awkwardly in silence for a few minutes, and I could go down a rabbit hole. But like I recognize it and I'm gonna honor it. So I'm gonna let that simmer for a few minutes as I pass it down to Dorit, and we'll see what else is coming up when we talk about being someone else. Dorit, what's coming up for you?
Oh, the imposter syndrome is something that I've been struggling with because I was brought up here in Norway. We have something called janteloven, which is actually it was written in 1933 by a writer named Axel Sandemose, and it was originally meant to be a picture of humanity's inert evil and their ability to like hold each other down, you know, to make someone look small or not being able to blossom. And there are like like 10 commandments in this, and it's all about you're no better than anyone else, don't think that you're something, and just a lot of things like that. So that has affected me a lot because, well, all the way up till we started on writing the book, my first book, I didn't think I had anything to offer. Everyone knows this. I don't know any more than anyone else. um, I didn't think that I had anything special. My experiences and my um, thoughts and my feelings and my intuition and empathy was nothing special. Everyone had that. I was sure about that. So I didn't try for anything. Never, ever. Not even going to class meetings for my kids. I didn't want to get elected into uh, the parent advisory team or whatever you call it, because they probably knew way more than me. So I was just sitting there in the background, and but as things progressed, I was like, but I could have done that, and I knew that. I can that better than, you know. But that was kind of feelings that I kept inside, bottled up. And I always tried to do as you, Shell, said, do all and be all. So no one could criticize me for anything, because I hated to be criticized. I just, oh, that was the worst thing. So I did 100% and then 100% on top of that 100%, just to make sure. And of course, I got the burnout, and that made me realize that it has to be good enough. What I do and what I say has to be good enough for me. And all of a sudden, just tiny little things made me realize that people were actually listening to what I was saying, and they had benefits for what I was saying. And they thanked me for the results they got from what I was saying. And that kind of made me, maybe I have something here after all, you know? So it kind of opened up really slowly. Like there was a crack in me when I got the burnout. Like I cracked like a little porcelain cup and the light could shine through. So what was hidden inside me could come out, and I could trust what I had. So that's part of what I have, my little mantra. I know and I trust. I don't use it as much anymore, but a few years ago I had it all the time. You guys know this, because I had to kind of calm that imposter syndrome feeling by reminding myself that I know things too, and I trust that I know the right things. So that kind of helped me a lot to step up and be able to show myself and say what was on my heart. So yeah, sorry, that was a long one.
Sorry, not sorry. Thank you, Dorit. I really resonate. Of course, I love the I know and I trust, and I do that for myself still now that you've taught it to all of us. Uh, Something that you said earlier on, about how, like, even when you were writing your first book, you didn't possibly, like, there was no way that you had something special to offer, right? You didn't believe that about yourself. Like, you were just as good as anybody else. Like, everybody else had this information and these skills and these strengths and qualities, and you weren't any different, right? I'm paraphrasing, of course.
Yeah.
And it reminds me of when I was in third grade. And I was thinking about this as you were sharing, where I was running for class president in third grade. And of course, I was running for class president. At some point, I must have thought I had something to offer people that was good enough, if not like more than enough to stand out and like be class president for whatever that was worth at 9 years old. And I remember very clearly on like election day in class, and I voted for somebody else. And I have never lived this down from my parents, because I came home and I told them. They were like, "Who did you vote for? Who won? Like, how close was it?" And I was like, "Well, I voted for somebody else." "What do you mean? You didn't even vote for yourself?" And I remember this clearly, and my mom still brings it up from time to time of like, you took yourself out of the running. You didn't believe in yourself that you were good enough to do the job for whatever reason. You believed strongly and held to that somebody else could do a better job, had more to offer. And I never thought about it like that. I had always thought of it as, well, somebody else has something else that like I don't feel like I want to compete with. Like that I don't even want to try, not because I don't think I can do a good job, but because what they have seems really great and I would want them to do that too. So I took myself out of it, and I didn't even think of it as a bad thing. But now looking back and hearing you share too, Dorit, I can clearly see where, like, yeah, maybe that's the point in time where I stopped believing in myself. And it took a lot of years for that to come out. even now, like for me to really think about it in a different way, to be like, oh crap, shit, like I guess I really did stop believing in myself, and I didn't even call it that because I was so busy calling it something else. So that's what's coming up for me as you were sharing that. But like just recognizing that and knowing that, even back then, I wasn't trying to be somebody else. I thought I was doing the best that I could, but I realized how that impacted me for like the long haul and made me silence myself and like caused me to like stay back in fear that I wouldn't do a good enough job. And maybe also leaned into the imposter syndrome and the perfectionism and the people pleasing to try to then crawl my way back to being noticed. But yeah, like something for me to noodle on a little bit longer because I had never thought about it in this way. So thank you for bringing that out of me, Dorit. Stina, I'm coming over to you now. What's coming up for you as we're talking more about being someone else?
I am thinking about parts therapy, archetypes, and women who run with the wolves. So I think those are all like connected in this category for me. Parts therapy, I think, is kind of the more, or sorry, not it's not called parts therapy. It's called internal family systems. And then parts, you kind of deal with these different parts of yourself in that. But we see archetypes throughout, tons of ancient history, philosophy, spirituality. And the book Women Who Run with the Wolves deals with the anima and animus types. So all these different ways that we describe the parts of ourself, and we naturally will say a part of me wants to go, a part of me wants to stay home, those kind of things, because we can like feel that we're not just this one monolith of a human with one desire, one idea, one experience. There's all of these parts of us. So when I have accepted my like behavior or decisions or something that feels, you're doing or saying or choosing something that feels like it's not quite what you want, it's not quite in alignment with who you really are, it's people pleasing, or it's kind of a default pattern, then if I say, oh, that's not me, it detaches you from that part of yourself. It can kind of disassociate you, or it makes it impossible really to relate to that part of you, to get curious about that part of you, and to understand, why am I doing that? What part of me feels that this is necessary or beneficial? What am I getting out of it? And that's a common kind of question in coaching, right? You're doing something that you think is producing this negative result. And I'll even ask my kids, what are you getting out of it? What's the result? What's the benefit to you? Because unless you can identify the need that's fulfilling, you won't be able to find a different way to meet that same need. So there's this part of you that, needs validation, needs connection, needs to be seen, needs to be heard, needs to be safe. All of those, kind of primal needs that we have, those instinctual things that come up as a child. And then we form these parts of ourselves. We kind of build this version of us because it works for us in some way. And then at some point we start to, kind of outgrow that version. And we're like, if I keep doing this, I won't be able to also do this other thing I want. It's limiting me. It's keeping me from expanding or, growing in some way. So I have found it really powerful to own that when it's like this, I'm being someone that's not me, or I'm being someone else. It's like, well, I'm being another part of me, or I'm being another version of me. Maybe I'm outgrowing it. Maybe I just don't like it anymore. Maybe I'm recognizing there are more efficient ways to meet those needs that are in alignment with the life that I want. But coming into relationship with that part of myself, that actually establishes that true safety. I'm safe no matter what I've done. I've got my back. I will get curious. I will stay open. I will be practicing compassion and and like kind of hold my hand through that instead of saying that's not me and putting up that kind of a wall. So that's what I'm thinking about.
We haven't done it in a while, and so bear with me while I pull it up on the screen, because I wasn't prepared for it. But like, I feel like that's a confetti drop moment, because something I heard you say, and you said a lot of great things, but one thing that I heard you say was, no matter what I've done, I've got my back. And like, I love that. Like, and also I've been thinking about confetti this whole time during the call of like, how can I shower everybody with love and appreciation, as we authentically like show ourselves and talk about that. So thank you, Stina, because like you gave me the light to pop that confetti, and I think that was a brilliant way to name it and to call it out for what it is. So I love that. Thank you so much for sharing today. Anyone else have anything else to add about being someone else today?
Stina, the way she was describing it is like, I thought about oxymoron, like human beings are oxymorons. Also, the idea of like she was describing shadow, right? So there is no absence of light, or there's no real shadow. There's just absence of light. So it's kind of like shining the light on one's shadow, and you can't do that unless you admit that anything is possible. And I studied, there was a book I read, and then I also studied it in Bible Study Fellowship of like, here's these Bible characters, or here's a certain Bible character, and they've done something wrong or whatever, and it's like, where are you in your life being this person and doing that thing? And that was super enlightening. And then like Dora was talking about her John Chappelear calls it gift of devastation, where she actually burnt out so bad that she couldn't really do much of anything for 7 years, and it cracked her open. And it's like she was living in her shadow, or living in the shadows, and not really getting out there and being who she is and doing in the world what she can do for people. And it cracked her open, and then it was that brought the light in so that she could see that she really could shine. So that's what was coming up for me. Oh yeah, and one more thing. In a high-end coaching event, there was an exercise where the end result showed you if you loved yourself or not. And I completely flunked it. And my husband flunked the I think the second part of it. And it was like, talk about the light coming in to the shadow. It was seriously enlightening, and helped both of us so much.
Now I want to know more about that exercise. It's so powerful sometimes when we could do something that seems so small, like an exercise, and then it opens up a world of possibilities for us when we can reflect back on it and like dive deeper into it. So yeah, if you want to share it more privately, like, then I would be happy to hear more about it. For everybody listening, if you related to this conversation and you want to share your own insights, experiences, and more, please feel free to share those with us in the comments or reach out to us more privately. Our DMs are open. If you have yet to connect with us, please, we would encourage you to do so. We'd love to have more conversations with you and get to know you better. I will pop up the other links as well. If you want to have a more individualized high vibe conversation of your own, here's where you can use the link on your screen to schedule with the high vibe lady of your choice. And don't forget, if you want more high vibe conversations, here's the YouTube link where you can subscribe so that you can catch up on previous conversations and make sure you get notified when more are coming your way. So that being said, We've talked all about being someone else. We've talked about everything from imposter syndrome to perfectionism to shadow work and more. We encourage you to come back for more as well. So maybe not next week because it's a holiday week and we will be taking some much needed time off, but the following week we will see you for more high vibe conversations. Until then, we will say bye for now.